Hi there. I want to take a minute to talk about effective communication. As somebody myself that has struggled with this for a lot of my life, I've been working very hard to be a better communicator to the people around me, and in order to have like healthier connections, right? So for me, and I mean, it's going to look different for everybody, but for me, I used to be a really shy kid. There was only a handful of people that I would talk to. And then, as I grew older, communication in general was hard for me because I was afraid of confrontation of any kind. Um, and I also feel like I was afraid to ask for things that I wanted out of fear for, like letting that person down or not getting what I want, those kind of things, which led me into spaces that, I wasn't effectively communicating. So I want to kind of tell you about that. So one of the things that I think a lot of us do, even without that, is we wait or we don't recognize that we might need something or want something. And then we wait too long. And then it kind of like builds up inside of us, which ends up, us kind of reacting to situations instead of like, and looking at the other person instead of realizing that, hey, we were leaving ourselves hanging and, we should have communicated what we wanted. So that's one of the things that I recognize about the old version of myself. And also like one of the things I noticed recently, because I struggled with effective communication, I, would be quick to jump and have a conversation before thinking through what's happening with me, and kind of putting other people in a tough spot because I'm, just taking action before I really figure out what's going on. So it's really important that, when something comes up for you and you're upset, especially if you're, looking outwardly instead of like seeing what's going on with you, it's really important that you think before you speak and think and try to get to the bottom of what's going on. Because one of the things I used to do when I wasn't an effective communicator was I would just, word vomit and not think things through and come from a place of like, being angry or upset or that kind of thing, instead of coming at somebody where I'm like, hey, I noticed this and what do you think we can do about it? Like that's an effective way to communicate it. If you pause, reflect, figure out what's really going on. And, this is going to take you a while to kind of recognize, things that, because really it comes down to you leaving yourself in the dark because you're not communicating it out loud, right? It's going to take you time to kind of get in the habit of recognizing even what is going on with you, where you're feeling like something needs to be expressed in general, okay? So really pausing to kind of reflect on what is actually going on instead of what your immediate thought is of what's going on, because it's usually like, hey, I need to kind of reflect and see what's going on with me. The other thing that I realized very recently that has been a very helpful tool for me, and maybe you'll think I'm crazy, but it does work, is I kind of have conversations with myself to get to the bottom of what is really going on. And oftentimes more than not, I've kind of recognized that I don't need to have a conversation with anybody. It's just really, I need to recognize something that I was doing that might not be helpful to me or my connection, right? Now, certainly it is important to express if you need to express to somebody, but I think the really big key that I'm trying to say for effective communication is to recognize what's really going on, get to the bottom of what's really going on before you have the communication. Like, don't be reactive. Like, if there's a situation where, somebody approaches you and they want to have a conversation, if you need to kind of pause and think about how you want to respond instead of being reactive, like you might have been in situations where you felt like on the defense, like this is a learned thing that you're doing in whatever way that, it means for you. It's different for everybody. But if somebody approaches you and wants to have a conversation, you might find yourself getting triggered or whatever. But, you know, if you need to tell that person, like, hey, give me a minute, I got to think about this before responding, do that. And then, you know, have a conversation with yourself, or maybe even write things down to get to the bottom of what's really going on. You know, maybe you don't even need to have a conversation with somebody. Maybe that's just something you need to recognize within yourself. But certainly, like, the most important thing is that you need to recognize where it is all coming from. Where's the root of it? Because oftentimes, like I'm saying, more times than not, you will find that it's someplace that you are leaving yourself hanging to dry and not asking other people to help you, or, you know, maybe asking for more. You know, don't be afraid to do those things, because that leads to these situations where you feel like you got to spew it out or react in an unhealthy way. So, leave in the comments if you've got any tools that you use to effectively communicate to the people around you. I'd love to hear it. And I hope this helps you.